Well, good morning. This hearing of the Committee on Agriculture to recognize the continuing contributions of the 1890 land-grant universities on the 125th anniversary of the passage of the Second Morrill Act will come to order. I've asked David Scott to open us with a prayer. David?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll bow our heads, please. Dear Heavenly Father, we come before your throne of grace to give thanks. We have so much to be thankful for. We want to thank you, dear Heavenly Father, for the leadership of this Agriculture Committee under the leadership of Chairman Mike Conaway and Ranking Member Colin Peterson, for their stewardship, for their care, and for the consideration of our 1890s African American colleges and universities. We thank you for that. And now, dear Heavenly Father, in our prayer to you this morning, we lift up those magnificent words, the words that were spoken by that famed and wonderful scientist, an agricultural pioneer and American legend, George Washington Carver, when he said to Booker T. Washington, Mr. President of Tuskegee Institute, I pledge to you that I will do everything through God and Christ that strengthens me to better the condition of our people. Dear Heavenly Father, we are here to carry on that mighty work that these extraordinary founders of the 1890s established to improve and better the condition of all of the American people. We thank you, dear God, for this day, this historic day, to have the 19 African American presidents of 1890s land-grant universities to testify before the Congress of the United States. Oh, thank God Almighty for this extraordinary blessing you have given to us this morning. And all we can say is thank you, God. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, David. Well, I want to welcome the panelists as well as the other presidents are here today. The Committee on Agriculture will shift its focus from legislation and oversight to one of a less political nature, but of significant importance nonetheless. Land-grant institutions are often characterized as 1862, 1890, or 1944 institutions based on the date of legislation that designated most of them land-grant schools. August 30th marks the 125th anniversary of the enactment of the Morrill Act of 1890, commonly referred to as the Second Morrill Act. This law authorized additional direct appropriations for the land-grant colleges of agriculture that had been established under the Morrill Act of 1862. The most significant feature of the Second Morrill Act was that the 1862 schools could receive the additional funds only if they admitted blacks into their programs or if they provided separate but equal agricultural higher education to black students. In the period following the Civil War, 16 southern states established separate land-grant colleges of agriculture for black students under this act. Congress designated Tuskegee University an 1890 institution at a later date. Today, in honor of continuing contribution to these important institutions, we'd like to hear directly from their leaders regarding not only the successes of the individual institutions, but likewise the successes of the 1890s, in general. This hearing is a result of David Scott's vision or dream to have this happen. When it became apparent that I was going to be the chairman of the Ag Committee for this term, David came to me and said, I've got a terrific idea for a hearing, a full committee hearing, in which we would highlight and show the American people the impact that the 1890 schools are having on production agriculture and all the jobs associated with agriculture, but more importantly, the students that go through those schools and then become responsible citizens in this country. So I said, all right, let's do that. I came down the hall a second ago, David and Colin. I have never seen a crowd as big as this one, the folks trying to get into this hearing this morning, and we've got folks in the overflow audience. So this is a direct result of David's work. If it goes really well, he and I'll get the credit. If it goes really bad, he gets the blame fully. So, this is a great day for the Ag Committee, and we appreciate everybody being here. In the coming months, we will further evaluate the land grant system, looking for ways to strengthen their capacity to improve our agriculture research, extension, and educational programs. While 6 of the 1890s presidents will testify this morning, we are fortunate in that the presidents from 18 of the universities are in attendance today, and they also are prepared to answer questions should any member ask them. That's a little unusual. Normally our questions are asked of just the folks at the table, but given the significance of all the presidents who are here, members are advised that they may ask any of the university presidents in the room a question during the questioning. In addition to our witnesses, joining us today, we have Dr. Andrew Hugin from Alabama A&M at Normal, Alabama. We have Dr. Alfred Rankins, President, Alcorn State University, Lorman, Mississippi. We have Dr. Cynthia Jackson Hammond, President of Central State University in Wilberforce, Ohio. We have Dr. Harry Williams, President, Delaware State University, Wilmington, Delaware. We have Dr. Raymond Burse, President of Kentucky State University from Frankfort, Kentucky. We have Dr. Kent Smith, President of Langston University from Langston, Oklahoma. We have Dr. Kevin Rome, for President of Lincoln University in Lincoln City, Missouri. We have Dr. W. Franklin Evans, who's President of the South Carolina State University in Orangeburg, South Carolina. We have Dr. Ray Belton, President, Southern University System, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. We have Dr. Lawrence B. Alexander, Chancellor, the University of Arkansas, Pine Bluff, Arkansas. We have Dr. Pamela Hammond, Interim President, Virginia State University, Petersburg, Virginia. And finally, we have Dr. Brian Hemphill, President of West Virginia State University Institute, West Virginia. If there are others in attendance, I didn't mention your name, please know that the committee values your contributions, and we'll get your name if you're not here, and I'll recognize you later in the program. So with that, I'd like to recognize Ranking Member Colin Peterson for any comments he may wish to make.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everybody. I'm glad to be here today to celebrate the anniversary of the enactment of the Second Morrill Act. And I'm pleased that our 1890 land-grant university presidents could join us today, including the president of the newest land-grant university, Dr. Cynthia Jackson Hammond from Central State University in Ohio. And thank you all for the good work that you do. As the chairman said, land-grant universities play an important role in agricultural research, extension, and educational programs. Research, as we know, is vital to agriculture, and USDA's research, education, extension programs help increase productivity, prevent plant and animal disease, improve human nutrition and health, and discover and utilize new technologies. So I look forward to hearing from all of you today, and look forward to future hearings on agricultural research. And again, welcome today's witnesses and all the other folks that are here. Look forward to the testimony and yield back.
Thank the gentleman. It's now my pleasure to introduce or to recognize the gentleman from Georgia, David Scott, and the instigator of all this madness today. So, David, any comments you'd like to make?
Yes, I will, Mr. Chairman. My first comment I'd like to make is just a tremendous thank you for your help on this. It may have been a germination of a seed coming from me, but its growth, its development, and to make sure this happen comes from you. And it's very important for everybody to know that this extraordinary, historic hearing today would not have happened if it were not for the hard work and the help, tremendous help, and the leadership of Mike Conaway, our distinguished chairman. I wish you would join me in giving him a round of applause. And of course, it would not be possible if we did not have an extraordinary chairman on the Democratic side who for many years has toiled in the vineyards and have helped us on this committee and throughout this nation in putting the interests of African American 1890s land grant colleges at the forefront. And I'm speaking of who is now our ranking member, Colin Peterson, who was a former chairman and provided so much leadership. And as you just mentioned to me, everything I did, David, I just did what the colleges wanted me to do. And that's Colin Peterson. Why don't you give him a hand? It's so important for us to recognize, ladies and gentlemen, that this is a bipartisan effort. You see before you Democrats and Republicans who care about our 1890s. That has been the history of it. It was through bipartisanship, Republicans and Democrats. If you all remember the senator, I believe Merrill, who started this first, and then he came back during the time when there was the separate but equal doctrine and made sure that it was written into the law. As a United States senator, he did that to say that the funds going into the 1890s would not be separate nor discriminate against, and to make sure that there is funding for these 1890 institutions. And so we stand here, Democrats and Republicans, looking out at this wonderful audience, and as the chairman has said, I have never seen such a crowd. And that's important, for they understand how important the education of all of America's people is. And so, Mr. Chairman, I'm delighted to be here, and I want to thank your staff, who did an extraordinary amount of work. And I want to thank my staff and Arthur Tripp. Arthur, are you here? Fantastic. Won't we give our staffs a hand? Thank you. And so I close with this reminder. I want everyone to know that there are hundreds of thousands of African American successful contributors to this nation and the world who would not have achieved that success if they did not have that way out of no way that the 1890s provided for us African Americans. And so we thank you for carrying on this extraordinary pilgrimage and honor and distinction of carrying forth and making sure that deep in our hearts, those words that I mentioned in my prayer is echoing through this room. The words of George Washington Carver rang true when he spoke them to Booker T. Washington. And let us remember them today when he told Booker T. Washington that, Mr. President, I pledge to you that I will do everything I can through the strength of Christ who strengthens me to better the condition of our people. We're here to carry that charge. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, David. I appreciate those comments. I also, too, want to thank our staffs. You and I make decisions, Colin and I make decisions, but our staff's the one who make the do all the work and put this together. The chair would request that other members submit their opening statements for the record so that our witnesses may begin their testimony and to ensure there's ample time for questions. Now it turns to the witnesses at the table. I did not leave y'all off the list of presidents who are here. We just had a different time to introduce you. First off is Dr. George C. Wright, President, Prairie View A&M Agricultural Mechanical University, Prairie View, Texas. Dr. Jessica Bailey, President, Fort Valley State University in Fort Valley, Georgia. I've asked Ms. Adams, Alma Adams, to introduce our next witness.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the Chancellor of America's largest historically black university and my alma mater, North Carolina A&T State University, Harold Martin Sr. has dedicated his career to helping students succeed in higher education. He's a native of Winston-Salem, North Carolina, received his bachelor's and master's of science in electrical engineering from North Carolina A&T and PhD from Virginia Polytech Institute and State University. He's held numerous positions in university administration at North Carolina A&T, at Winston-Salem State University, and the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. President Obama named Chancellor Martin to the Board of International Food and Agricultural Development, a board that advises the United States Agency for International Development on agriculture and higher education. Dr. Martin leads this premier 1890 land-grant university with passion and purpose, promoting global and cultural competency and social awareness. Today, A&T is growing both in terms of student enrollment and in investment. And since 1999, A&T has expanded its investments in facilities and infrastructure, transforming the campus into one of Greensboro's main economic engines. Today, we recognize the importance of 1890 land grant and all that it has done to create and sustain historically black colleges and universities. In April, North Carolina A&T celebrated the 125th anniversary of the Second Morrill Act of 1890, established the funding mechanism and framework for providing access to education. As a two-time alumnus of North Carolina A&T, and as Mr. Scott has said, I did my later work, my terminal degree at The Ohio State University because of the North Carolina A&T. So I welcome my distinguished fellow Aggie to the committee today to share more about this amazing institution and his experiences with us this morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you, Gentlelady. I'll ask Gentlelady from Florida, Ms. Graham, to introduce our next witness.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am so honored to have here today my dear friend, Dr. Elmira Mangum, President of Florida A&M University, located in my district. Go Rattlers. Under Dr. Mangum's leadership, FAMU and other 1890 institutions are leading the way in innovative research that will keep American farming practices at the forefront of the industry. FAMU has a history of excellence in agriculture, research, and development, and today the university boasts programs that span a wide range of issues and impact farmers and farm practices in the U.S. and worldwide. And I have been very honored to have an opportunity to be with Dr. Mangum on multiple occasions to hear about all of those. FAMU hopes to secure a land transfer agreement with USDA that would provide 3,800 additional acres for the university to expand its critical work. The land would be a training tool where new and beginning farmers will learn the latest in farm practices and biotechnology. I am so proud to have you here today, Dr. Mangum, to share FAMU's accomplishments with my colleagues on this committee. We owe it to our farmers to continue supporting the institutions that keep American farming practices competitive. Thank you for being here, and I look forward to hearing your testimony. Yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. We also have Dr. Brian Johnson from Tuskegee University in Tuskegee, Alabama, and Dr. Juliette Bell, President of University of Maryland, Eastern Shore, and Princess Anne, Maryland. So thanks, everybody, for being here. Dr. Wright, whenever you're ready to begin, the microphone is yours.
Okay. Good morning. Mr. Chairman, ranking member, and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to address you today. I am George C. Wright, President of Prairie View A&M University. Prairie View A&M University is the second oldest public institution of higher learning in Texas. On August the 14th, 1876, the Texas legislature established the Agriculture and Mechanical College of Texas for colored youths and placed responsibility for its management with the Board of Directors of the Agriculture and Mechanical College of Bryan, present-day Texas A&M University, linking the 1862 and 1890 university together. Prairie View A&M will have some 9,000 students this fall. During its 139-year history, some 60,000 academic degrees have been awarded. Prairie View A&M University's agricultural program prepares students to enter careers in the human sciences, animal, crop, and environmental sciences, and agriculture and resource economics. Students work with PVAMU faculty who are actively engaged in research that includes, but is not limited to, increasing the shelf life of dairy products, protecting fruits against sun rays, advancing knowledge in the use of medicinal plants to improve health, securing water resources, and developing strategies to enhance watershed functions in a sustainable way. Because of the large population of Texas, and with the state having the largest number of farms, Prairie View receives the largest funding portion of any of the 1890 institutions for its various programs. For an example, in the past year, Prairie View received some $11 million from USDA. Over the past 10 years, Prairie View received $42 million for agricultural research, $35 million for agricultural extension, and $14 million to construct new facilities. Federal funding has enabled Prairie View to be involved in a number of programs that benefit young people, not just in rural Texas, but in urban Texas as well. For instance, our program for 4-H youth development works with some 200,000 students throughout the state of Texas in a wide range of areas. I will conclude by saying that I am honored to have this opportunity to testify before you today. And on behalf of the faculty, staff, and above all students of Prairie View, thank you for this wonderful opportunity, and we appreciate all the support we have received from you over the years. Thank you.
Jim yells back, and the chair recognizes that he left 2 minutes on the clock. So, Dr. Wright, thank you very much for that. Appreciate that. That's, those of you that are just new to this process, that's a big deal. So, thank you, Dr. Wright. Dr. Bailey, recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Chairman Conaway, Ranking Member Peterson, and members of the House Committee on Agriculture. My name is Jessica Bailey, and I serve as the interim president of Fort Valley State University. I'd like to just highlight some of the wonderful work that's being done at Fort Valley State University. Fort Valley State is supporting USDA Strategic Goal 1 by researching renewable energy and bio-based products. In particular, we're doing research on the Paulownia elongata tree, forestry woods, and switchgrass. In addition, biodiesel processing basics have been introduced to over 500 4-H and FFA students in Georgia. Through Project Green, Fort Valley State has been able to save Georgians thousands of dollars through energy audits, equipment efficiency savings, and weatherization upgrades. We are also involved in the process of recruiting and training a new generation of agricultural and food sciences. For example, young people come to our institution to receive communications and professional skills training. We have programs that reach out to K through 12 levels of students and give them hands-on experience in molecular biology techniques. Also, all of these programs serve as a pipeline to our stellar programs in veterinary technology and agricultural biotechnology. We're also diligent in supporting USDA Strategic Goal 2 because we collaborate with other entities to support minority forest landowners. We increase their overall knowledge through training in money management skills, estate planning, marketing, and other necessary skills. And by doing so, we have contributed to the efficient distribution of millions of dollars. We support Strategic Goal 4 by promoting healthier diets and reducing the risk of foodborne illnesses. More than 12,000 youth in Georgia have been given training in food education. Also, the university conducts world-renowned research on sheep and goat herds, as well as the development of healthier livestock products. We have done land-breaking research in peach trees, identifying factors that contribute to tree survival and fruit production. We also have programs that do training to educate farmers and ranchers about the offerings of the USDA. We have a mobile information technology center that assists the elderly and shut-ins. Last year, it's estimated that we were able to save Georgians more than $5.5 million. We appreciate the support that we have received in the past, and we know that increased funding can enable us to become a unique demonstration farm for resource-constrained small farmers and ranchers. Producers must become environmental stewards, and so we envision that we can create a dynamic nutrient cycling system for sustainable, organic, small-scale production. It can save costs. We can produce food to be consumed on our campus, and also we can assist in helping the United States fortify its position as world leader in food production. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to report on what Fort Valley State University has done and can do. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bailey. Dr. Barton, you have 5 minutes.
Good morning, Chairman Conaway, Ranking Member Peterson, members of the House Committee on Agriculture, with special recognition being given to Congressman David Scott for his commitment to 1890 land-grant institutions, Congressman David Rouser of North Carolina, and Congresswoman North Carolina Agricultural and A&T State University graduate, Congresswoman Alma Adams, who has served as a representative and advocate for a university for more than 20 years, both in the North Carolina General Assembly and now in the U.S. House of Representatives. I am Harold Martin, Chancellor of North Carolina A&T State University, and Mr. Chairman, I am absolutely pleased to be here to testify before this committee today. Today's hearing provides 1890 land-grant institutions the opportunity to highlight the innovative research being performed by our outstanding faculty, discuss the return on investment we provide to our local, state, and regional economies through the education, research, and outreach we provide, and I'll offer recommendations for ways the federal government can further and support the 1890 community. Established in 1891, shortly after the passage of the Second Morrill Act, North Carolina A&T State University, a university with a variety of academic and research programs serving approximately 10,700 students, provides throughout its history ladders of opportunity to high-achieving students seeking a superior education and ensuring the betterment of underserved communities in North Carolina and beyond. In an era when family farms and farmland are rapidly disappearing from the American landscape, farm census data shows that African American farms in North Carolina are on the rise. Despite these successes, challenges still loom for the small and minority farm community. A&T provides these farmers opportunities to enhance their success through dedicated, knowledgeable extension agents, deploying new science and innovative farming techniques developed by our faculty and other institutional partners. 3 examples illustrate the outstanding work that our faculty and staff do. First, the Piedmont Triad region, where the university is located, was ranked 1 in the nation for food insecurity by the Food Research and Action Center. USDA has also designated 24 food deserts in the city of Greensboro. In recognizing that need, A&T has partnered with the city of Greensboro to establish the city's first urban farming enterprise to serve residents of long-standing food deserts. A&T is now training those residents in best practices for urban farming, providing communities with nutritional programming aimed at reducing obesity, diabetes, and other chronic diseases. The expectation is that this site will become a model for other communities across the state. Secondly, in October 2014, National Geographic published an extensive expose on North Carolina's persistent hog waste and the challenges it created for fisheries and water resources. Heeding the call to action, A&T's swine unit used research supported by the Evans Islands Program to develop new technologies to attack this problem. As a result, the Bioadhesive Alliance, an A&T spin-out company, was established to market technology for hog waste-derived bioasphalt and bioadhesives that performs better and is produced at a fraction of the cost of petroleum-derived asphalts and adhesives. This product, which has been named PyGrid, has potential to convert North Carolina's 15.5 million tons of hog waste into a green source of revenue for our state and our farmers. Such innovative research underscores A&T's relevance to North Carolina's economy, where agriculture is the largest industry, contributing $78 billion to the state's economy. And finally, A&T's USAID federally funded research has resulted in notable success important to allergy sufferers. Food scientists in our School of Agriculture have developed a post-harvest process for reducing the major allergens in peanuts. This research has produced the university's newest spin-off company, Allergen Bio, which is now marketing hyperallergenic peanut technology for food companies. The same A&T research team hopes to expand this research to allergen-reducing processes for soy, wheat, and tree nuts for the benefit of millions of Americans who suffer from the dangerous food allergies. Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member, and Committee, as you can see, the investments made to A&T through USDA National Institute of Food and Agriculture funding have led to scientific breakthroughs and innovations in agriculture that have created a real return on investments for our taxpayers. To sustain the level of innovation I've described, competitive funding is essential. A&T fully supports President Obama's fiscal year 2016 NIFA budget request, which includes an increase from fiscal year 15 to support Central State University, the newest 1890 land-grant university, and encourages members of Congress to continue to make overall NIFA funding a high priority. A&T is a fellow, and its fellow 1890 institutions have always done more with less. However, it has never been by choice. Secretary of Agriculture Thomas Vilsack recently cited studies that show that every dollar invested in agricultural research returns $20 to the nation's economy. Unfortunately, each year, half or more of the 1890s do not get the full match from the states they serve, and most are required to complete burdensome waiver documentation to become eligible for at least a portion of federal funds allocated. A&T requests that Congress provide additional oversight to ensure that states meet their obligation for providing the one-to-one match requirement and encourage states to provide eligible formula funding to each land-grant university in each state. Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member, and members of the committee, thank you very much for this opportunity to testify before the Congress.
Thank you, Dr. Martin. Dr. Mangum, your 5 minutes.
Good morning, Chairman Conaway, Ranking Member Peterson, and distinguished members of the House Committee on Agriculture. Thank you, Representative Graham, for that kind introduction and also for your service to Florida and the nation. On behalf of our more than 10,000 students, 3,000 faculty and staff, and 70,000 alumni, including the Honorable David Scott, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for this invitation. The strength of Florida's $120 billion agricultural industry is due in part to the strength of the state's two land-grant institutions, Florida A&M University and the University of Florida. With the research of these institutions, we've been able to improve our methods of production. Our extension services share the technologies and techniques born in the labs and classrooms with Florida urban and rural communities. One beneficiary of Florida A&M's research is Jasmine Hall, a recent graduate. Federal funding allows FAMU to foster early research experiences to undergraduates like Jasmine. Working with Professor Violet Solova at our Center for Viticulture and Small Fruit Research, Ms. Hall has earned public recognition as the first young scientist to clone a gene from the muscadine grape. Identifying and using grapes antioxidants as a dietary supplement will help to reduce cancer, obesity, and improve human health overall. FAMU holds 9 patents in agriculture, including one for the distinct cultivar of the muscadine grape plant, the Majesty grape. The vines of this cultivar are vigorous, productive, and disease-resistant.
Our research programs through our 4 research centers contribute to the advancement of new knowledge and scientific discoveries that have national and international implications through a variety of initiatives, including developing biological strategies to control invasive pests and plants like the honeybee mite. These invasive species interrupt agricultural production, as you know. Our researchers are also working on developing best management practices for efficient use of fertilizers in tomato and field corn that reduce water contamination and enhance farm profitability. Partnering with agencies such as the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Services and the USDA Animal Health Inspection Service, FAMU is poised to play a more prominent role in helping to promote agriculture in Florida, the nation, and the world. Our vet tech program and biological and agricultural systems engineering programs are just 2 examples of this partnership. At FAMU, the NRCS has been the lifeblood of the BASE program, and APHIS has been the lifeblood of the Veterinary Medicine Technology program. BASE is a biologically based engineering discipline that integrates agricultural, biological, chemical, environmental, life, and engineering sciences. It focuses on solving problems and designing systems related to the preservation and enhancement of natural resources and the environment, as well as biological and agricultural production and processes. Approximately 65% of all African American doctorates in BASE programs are graduates of 2 ABET accredited programs, North Carolina A&T University and Florida A&M University. The Corporate Extension Program at the College of Agriculture and Food Sciences serves as the outreach arm of FAMU. This program provides services throughout the entire state of Florida. A few examples of these programs include the Farm to School program, FAMU Statewide Small Farm Program, School and Community Gardening, and the Family Resource Management Program. These programs have reached approximately 1 million children in Florida and adjacent states, improved sales, developed community gardening and farming skills, and assisted approximately 300 individuals with home ownership. The transfer of the 3,800 acres in Brooksville, Florida by the USDA Agricultural Research Services to Florida A&M will be the single largest land transfer to a historically black college or university in history. The transfer will enable FAMU to develop educational training and developmental programs for new and beginning farmers and ranchers, and to teach them the latest biotechnical innovations. With your continued and enhanced support, we will continue to use these resources to expand our teaching, research, and extension programs to serve the increasing needs of our state and our nation. We have adopted a university-wide commitment to advancing agricultural innovations, drawing on the strengths of our many colleges and institutes. To realize this vision, FAMU will leverage its research across the state of Florida, including extension programming at satellite locations and research and development at the Brooksville property. FAMU is well positioned to help Florida and the nation meet the agricultural demands of the 21st century and beyond. And again, on behalf of Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University, I thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee, for this opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Mangum. Dr. Johnson, 5 minutes.
My apologies, received from the agricultural research and extension has resulted in innovations in science, education, and economic development of importance to the state of Alabama, the southern region, and the nation. Agricultural programs, as Congressman Scott pointed out, began in Tuskegee in 1896 when George Washington Carver joined the Tuskegee faculty and pledged to serve alongside of Booker T. Washington. Carver contributed significantly to Southern agriculture through his research and extension activities. Now, there are roughly 3,100 students at Tuskegee University. 2,100 of these students are in STEM or STEM-related fields. Research and extension programs at Tuskegee University focus on fruit and vegetables and food animals produced by small farmers with emphasis on profitability. This program is important because it is a partnership of socially disadvantaged and undeserved farmers working together in clusters in a partnership of a socially disadvantaged work with Walmart, Littman, Pura Vida, W.P. Riles, and other commercial marketers to provide fresh, locally grown fruits and vegetables to commercial retailers. Importantly, Tuskegee University assisted the farmers in passing farm audits for the GAP, Good Agricultural Practices, Harmonized Food Safety Standards, required by commercial markets. This partnership has demonstrated potential for bringing jobs and economic development to persistent poor counties in Alabama and other states. The results are an excellent illustration of effective use of 1890 land grant capacity funds to support farm and agribusiness based on economic development in rural communities. Tuskegee University scientists continue to work on peanuts through genome analysis focused on disease-resistant gene identification and mapping, sweet potatoes through breeding new varieties, enhancing nutrition through plant biotechnology, and developing new crop uses for food and fuel. Tuskegee researchers have targeted reduction in parasites in meat animals by using molecular and genetic-based technologies and through a patented system that uses a plant bark as an effective natural feed supplement. A patented chemical treatment enhances reusability poultry litter better for application to land by reducing excess phosphorus levels by 90%. Another patent Tuskegee researchers have developed detects food-borne pathogens in poultry in hours versus days or weeks, thus potentially preventing human illness. Agroforestry research is assessing the dual impact of pine stand control, caprine parasite control, and related economic viability of longleaf and loblolly pine stands, and diet, nutrition, and exercise programs are focused on intervention strategies to reduce obesity and cancer and improve the overall health of youth and adults. One project targets 8 to 15-year-old children in multiple counties to determine food preferences and influence to food access and food quality in rural counties. We're pleased that recent data indicates Tuskegee University ranks #1 in the nation in African American graduates in agriculture, agricultural operations, and related sciences, #2 in African American graduates in natural resources and conservation, #1 in graduating African Americans in veterinary medicine, and is among top producers in African American engineers. Our funding challenges and opportunities. Our work with small farmers is important because they represent 90% of all farmers, control more than 50% of the land, and have the potential to increase jobs and economic development across many rural communities, especially if they work together. The models we're developing can be duplicated in other states and regions of the United States, especially in areas with persistent poverty. This will simultaneously assist the commercial markets and consumers because of savings in energies and transportation costs, and the increased local product quality and freshness can be passed on to consumers. One final remark. In 1998 and 1999, Congress made provision for the 1890 land grants to universities to obtain one-to-one matches from states for capacity research and extension grants. 15 years later, this is a work still in progress for many states. For fiscal year 2015-16, Tuskegee University will be at a 0.87 to 1 ratio, the highest ratio attained since the required match inception, and we're grateful to all involved. Once again, we thank Congress for its support of not only Tuskegee University, but its sister 1890 institutions.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Dr. Bell, 5 minutes.
Chairman Conaway, Ranking Member Peterson, and members of the committee, good morning. My name is Juliet Bell. I am the president of the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, and I also have the pleasure of serving as the chair of the Council of 1890 Universities and the co-chair of the USDA 1890 Task Force established by the Secretary of Agriculture. On behalf of the 1890 Universities, thank you for this great opportunity to testify before this committee as we celebrate our 125th anniversary of the Second Morrill Act, which established the 1890 universities. Today, the 1890 universities continue to focus on teaching of practical agriculture, science, and mechanical arts to improve and uplift our communities. Collectively, the 1890s have led the way in innovation, discovery, and outreach, and have provided access to educational opportunities for countless thousands of students across this country. For more than a century, the University of Maryland Eastern Shore has embraced and advanced the land-grant mission. The funding we receive has enhanced the university's capacity to deliver practical education
and training for our students. There are three critical areas where the funding has had the greatest impact. These are in workforce development, research and innovation, engagement and outreach. Today, the challenge of developing an educated, diverse, highly skilled, and innovative workforce remains a top priority. With 67% African American students, UMES is one of the most diverse campuses of the University System of Maryland, ensuring access to all students. We offer 8 baccalaureate degrees, 4 master's, and 3 PhD degrees in critical science, technology, engineering, agriculture, and mathematics areas. Our role in providing access and opportunities for many who otherwise may not have had the opportunity to attend college is critical. UMES and the other 1890 universities face great challenges compared to our 1862 counterparts in providing a quality education for many students who are first generation, economically disadvantaged, and often underprepared for college. And we do this with less funding. UMES has leveraged its annual federal research capacity appropriation of about $1.5 million to establish nationally recognized programs in key areas such as food security and safety, obesity prevention, forestry, and conservation of coastal and marine living resources. Our unique geographic location between the Atlantic Ocean and the Chesapeake Bay on the Delmarva Peninsula has positioned the university to strategically provide critical research and serve as an economic engine for our region. For instance, given the importance of food and water security, our scientists are exploring how unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, can be used in precision agriculture to improve the efficiency of water use and the application of nutrients to large farm plots. Given our location in the heart of Maryland's billion-dollar poultry industry, our faculty and students have been invaluable in generating knowledge on food safety. Our extension faculty are working directly with the seafood industry, another important sector in Maryland, to support the safety of seafood products. Through our strong extension and outreach programs, we continue to address the challenges related to rural poverty and health services of underserved populations in urban areas. For many years, UMES has conducted a small farms outreach initiative for farmers in the region with the goal of improving the economic conditions of small-scale, limited resource, and socially disadvantaged farmers to provide educational programs that improve their farm management skills and expedite their participation in USDA farm programs. Continued strategic investment in the 1890s at the state and the federal level will allow us to carry on our mission. Greater investment will allow us to be more competitive and effective at producing a diverse workforce to engage in the research and outreach that addresses the many issues facing our world today and tomorrow. As we celebrate this momentous 125th anniversary of the signing of the Second Morrill Act of 1890, we look back with pride on our accomplishments and forward to the many challenges that our 1890 universities can and will address with your continued support. Strategic investment in the 1890s is investment in the future. Again, I thank you for your continued commitment and support of the University of Maryland Eastern Shore and all of the 1890 universities. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Bell. I thank all our witnesses. Great stories across all 6 institutions. I know if the other 12 chancellors and presidents could have made an opening statement, they would have similar stories. The record of the hearing will be open for 10 days. For any of the other universities who want to make an opening statement, we will include those in the record as if you had actually testified. The chair will remind members they will be recognized for questioning in order of seniority from members who were here at the start of the hearing. After that, members will be recognized in order of arrival. I appreciate the members' understanding. We do have all 18 presidents with us today, so if members would like to ask President who is not seated at the witness table a question, they'll be welcome to do so. I now recognize myself for 5 minutes. Again, thank you very much, each of you being here. Dr. Wright, could you talk to us a bit about how Prairie View A&M works with the other institutions, A&M, as well as the other institutions in Texas to coordinate and not duplicate and not overlap each other?
Okay. Prairie View is a member of the Texas A&M system, and as such, we're fortunate in being located no more than 40 miles away from Texas A&M University. Therefore, some of the facilities they have, world-class facilities, our students go there and use those facilities in meat processing, dairy activities, and the like. Also, Tarleton University, West Texas A&M University, other system universities, our agriculture deans and faculty meet on a regular basis, and so they interact. If you look at the Hispanic-serving institutions of Texas, Prairie View often works with those institutions when it comes to research projects. And so consequently, there are instances where Prairie View may be the lead, other times one of the other institutions, whether it's Texas A&M or one of the other Hispanic-dominated schools will as well. So we find that very important. I would also add that Langston University in Oklahoma and Prairie View were involved in a goat and sheep project in Ethiopia for 5 years, where we introduced in 7 different regions of that massive country, which is twice the size of Texas, to give you a sense, that we introduced tens of thousands of new goats and sheep, which were 1/3 larger than the animals there in Ethiopia, which made a big difference there. So collaborative activities. I would close on this point by saying with the fellow HBC institutions, we compete against them in athletics, but when it comes to other activities, we work closely with them on various research projects.
I appreciate that. Dr. Martin, you and I were having a brief conversation about the way you link in with the small farmers and the production. You mentioned a great success story on hog waste and the impact, excuse me, Dr. Davis, or Mr. Davis, the hog waste issue that you talked. Can you talk to us, flush out that about how you get the ideas, how you link in with what's actually needed on the farm to what you're doing at your university?
Thank you, Chairman Conaway. One of the things that our university does first is we brand extension activities collaboratively with our colleagues at NC State, the 1862 in North Carolina. But we also spend an enormous amount of our time deploying members of our faculty and staff and administration and extension agents out into the communities where there's the greatest need throughout our state, to meet with community leaders, to meet with the farmers of those communities on their land, assessing with them what their greatest needs are. Whether it be soil-related issues, business planning models, or whether it be transitioning from one set of crops to a new set of crops, to understand what those farmers' needs are. We invite them to our campus to understand what their greatest needs are as well. And through those interactions, we frame strategy for a collective group of the farmers in a particular region and particular singular plans for a particular farmer to meet that farmer's needs, quite frankly. And so this is an ongoing, regular conversation with our constituents so that we're better understanding the needs of our farmers. And through the research we do and working collaboratively with our partners, we deploy best science, best technology.
I appreciate that. Dr. Rome, would you mind stepping up to a microphone and answering the question real quick? Sure. Yes, sir. Could you visit with us about what's the top success story at your institution?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for asking that. We pride ourselves in organic farming, and so all of our farms, everything we do is organic, and we have a commitment to maintaining that.
All right, thank you. Back to balance my time, the gentleman from Minnesota.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Johnson, you mentioned in your testimony the need for additional funding to reach out to small farmers.
Yes.
Are you receiving funds through the Agriculture, Food, and Research Institute or through the smaller programs like the Section 2501 outreach grants and the Beginning Farmer and Rancher Development programs?
The last part of your question, I could not quite.
Whether you were, also the smaller programs, the Section 2501 outreach grants, and which is tied, I guess, to the beginning farmer rancher development programs. Are you?
I'm not quite familiar with that
Okay.
particular section, but I will certainly follow up with both you and your staff immediately following.
But you're getting through the Agriculture, Food and Research Institute?
Yes, we are.
You're getting, okay. The other thing, I noticed in your testimony that you said you're the #1 producer of African-American veterinaries in the country. And that is something in Minnesota we've been prided, and we have a tremendous veterinary school, and but it's a challenge getting enough especially large animal veterinarians to fulfill the need. Are these veterinaries, are they large animal, small animal, or what's the percentage of?
Well, I'm not exactly sure on the percentage of which of our graduates are in the small animals or large animals, but certainly we have a number of students who have graduated and have gone into large animal work, but we'd be happy to give you the exact percentages of who's involved with small animal versus large animal.
Thank you. Dr. Wright, you mentioned the challenge of getting state matching funds. So can you walk me through what parts of this require state matching funds and how that all works exactly, and what the problems you're having with it?
Okay. Years ago, I'm in my 12th year as president of Prairie View, there was no match requirement, but eventually it became a 25%, so the state of Texas would have to put up X amount for us to then get Y amount. So if we were getting 10 million, the state would have to match with 2.5 million.
Do you know what year that happened?
It's been over, I would say, over a 10-year period. It's gone from 25 to 50 to 75, and now it's at 100. Well, what USDA has done, fortunately, is that when we've not made the match the last 2 times, they have given us a waiver whereby they've looked at our effort to receive the match, and then they've had the discretion to waive it.
So they're up to 100% now? So in other words, whatever we're going to provide, the state has to come up with 100%?
Right, that's my understanding.
So
our legislature has finished, and if my memory is correct, we are something like 3 million short. This time, we needed 11 million, and we received more like 8 million. So we're in the situation now where we will contact USDA and ask again for the match.
Are these on all the grants, or are these on some specific areas?
It's on our research and extension area.
Is this required in the, I should know this, I guess, but is this required of the other land-grant universities? This is all across the whole system?
Yes, it is, and the Texas A&M, for instance, in our system, they have a much larger operation, and so they receive various pools, and so consequently, they're able to make their match in that regard from a number of different things. We just don't have as large a pool. As you may know, Texas A&M is one of the largest public universities in the country with some 55,000 students, and they're located in every every county in Texas. Prairie View is not, but 8,000, almost 9,000, and we're located in only 30 counties.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. You'll back.
Yes,
Gentleman yields back. Mr. Scott from Georgia, 5 minutes.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I have a memo I'd like to insert for the record and have passed out just for point of discussion.
Without objection.
Thank you very much. I'll pass to the members and to the college presidents. And it addresses a concern. I've read all of your testimonies, and there is such a concern about additional funding, particularly as we grapple with the issues of beginning farmers, the average age of the farmer. And so basically, my first part of my 5 minutes I want to spend with just going through this. Currently, the 1890 land grant institutions receive the majority of the United States Department of Agriculture funding through the Farm Bill every 5 years. And these funds are to be used for three general purposes: research, education, and extension. As a result of the current Farm Bill, on February 9, 2015, the United States Department of Agriculture Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights, Joe Leonard, announced the availability of more than $18 million for the 19 historically black land-grant colleges and universities in an effort to recruit, educate, and train African-American students for careers in agriculture. What I'm proposing in this memo is just a small language addition. The proposed language addition would be to add one additional use to the current funding structure, because in order to encourage, recruit, and train more African American students for careers in agriculture, farming, and agribusiness, this additional use of the funds would be helpful and necessary to help achieve Assistant Secretary Joe Leonard's and our objective, which is to recruit, educate, and train more African American students for careers in this very important, critical, and growing fields of agriculture, farming, and agribusiness. So, the proposed new uses of funds, if we're able to add this language, will read as follows. These funds will be used for the following purposes: teaching, research, extension. The new addition would be student scholarships and student loan forgiveness. Now let me give you, thank you. Now let me give you the rationale for this proposed language addition, knowing that the average age of agricultural farmers in the United States is 60 years of age. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a national security issue. Agriculture is the food we eat. It is the clothes we wear. It is our energy. It is our whole financial growing system through commodities exchanges. Lord knows when we have a commodities exchange like ICE that has purchased the New York Stock Exchange, you know agriculture now is the single most important industry in the world. It is the leading part of the economy of 44 of the states in the United States now. So, in addition to knowing that we face this challenge of the farmer's age growing up at 60, and knowing the difficult challenges facing beginning farmers, and knowing the critical need to increase the number of African American students seeking careers in agriculture and farming, therefore the United States Congress recognizes that we, the United States Congress ourselves, must play a critical role in reducing the average age of farmers, providing greater assistance for beginning farmers, and provide financial scholarships and loan forgiveness to bring more African Americans into the flourishing careers of farming and agricultural business. In conclusion, thus through this language addition, that funds can now also be used for student scholarships and loan forgiveness for 1890 students, we are also helping to bring down the average age of farmers over time and open the door of opportunity for more beginning farmers. I submit this memo, and I appreciate your allowing it to be a part of the record as a point of discussion for us to move forward as something we collectively, as 1890 institutions, and in the bosom of this House Agriculture Committee, to discuss and to see how we might be able to make this additional language change and provide just this fourth area that funds may be used. I did,
Chairman's
my
time
time is
expired.
up. Thank you, Mr.
Chairman's
Chairman.
time has expired. Mr. Rogers from Alabama, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to take pride in having Dr. Brian Johnson from Tuskegee University here today. As you heard earlier, the Tuskegee University and staff have been continuing the tradition of Booker T. Washington and George Washington Carver, and we are thrilled not only with the university but with our new president, and look forward to working with him for a long time to come. One of the focuses of my energy as a member of Congress in recent years has been on promoting public-private partnerships. We have a lot of economic challenges in this country, and I'm convinced that whether it's transportation, our national defense, telecommunication security, or agriculture, public-private partnerships are going to be a creative avenue where we accomplish a lot of the goals that we need to focus on as a country. Tuskegee University is home to an award-winning research program that remains competitive in receiving grants, and given that Tuskegee, unlike most of the HBCUs here from 1890 legislation, are public, Tuskegee's private. So you have some unique challenges in funding. So my question, Dr. Johnson, is how do you see the future of research changing with regard to private funding as well as public-private partnerships with universities?
Congressman Rogers, thank you for the question, and I look forward to working with you as well. I want to give you a couple of examples. Currently, our wonderful faculty in the agriculture area is working with the private corporations such as Walmart, working with small farmers so that they can gain some profitability. One of the issues that could consistently face small farmers is that they can produce items, but they can't generate enough revenue to sustain their farms throughout the years. And so what essentially our faculty are doing is working with these small farmers on the private side. So that's an example of a private partnership. With the federal government, we're pleased that recently 8 USDA agencies have come together to help form what we describe as the Carter Integrative Sustainability Center. This Sustainability Center will allow members of the USDA to have offices on our campus, and also allow our faculty researchers to work there alongside of them.
Well, I'm curious, anybody who's ever visited your campus can see that there's a history of corporate partnership with your university. Do you have an infrastructure that you are a part of that opens lines of communication to corporate America to help you familiarize yourself with what their needs are in a way that you could possibly be a partner in helping them resolve those concerns? Or is there such an organization? It may not be, I'm asking.
Well, obviously, we rely upon, the 1890 Council for insight into what's happening nationally with corporations that we can continue to develop more and more partnerships with. But internally and internal to the institution, frankly, we work individually with corporation by corporation. Obviously, increased funding will help us to develop such an infrastructure that will enable us to do it faster. One of the things I think my colleagues and I would agree is that we receive a lot of ideas about how to make these corporations and partnerships work, but however, we need obviously additional personnel, we need additional funding, we need the technology infrastructure to streamline it, or to form, as it were, a clearinghouse, whether it be shared by an 1890 institutions or whether it's unique and intrinsic to the university. So let me just say that obviously we draw on what available consortiums we're part of to note and see what corporate needs are nationally, but obviously internal to the university. Frankly, we work partnership at a time to those who come willing to partner with the institution.
Well, I have the honor of chairing, along with Jerry Connolly of Virginia, the Public-Private Partnership Caucus, and we've been in place for about 3 years now, and I look forward to reaching out to your institution as well as all the institutions here to establish a dialogue as to how we can better promote your partnership with the private sector in trying to accomplish some of the challenges we have as a nation. But with that, I yield back, and thank you all for being here.
Gentleman yields back. Ms. Fudge from Ohio, 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and I thank you all so much for being here today. Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record an APLU policy brief, which I will be referencing in my remarks today.
Without objection.
Thank you very much. Let me just first congratulate all of the HBCUs, 1890s, that are here today. for the remarkable work you do under circumstances that are not always the best. And I especially want to thank you for taking a chance on students that most universities would not take a chance on, especially those who have low test scores or low GPAs. You, if no other institution does, recognizes that there is talent in a lot of these young people, and that all they really need is an opportunity to succeed. I understand that we have students coming to your institutions who need some remedial or special work, and let me just say to you, that is probably going to get worse, and that is one of the reasons I think we do need to start giving more resources to your institutions, because I also sit on the Education Committee, and we just passed out of committee a bill that is going to cut K-12 funding, which is going to make this problem worse, as well as they're going to block grant all Title I funding. So it's going to be a major problem for young people coming into your institution. So again, I thank you and ask that you would continue to invest in young people. The APLU report that I referenced, Mr. Chairman, indicates that from 2010 to 2012, only 61% of 1890 land-grant institutions received a 100% match from their states. That totals over that period of time some $57 million that land-grant, 1890 land grants did not receive because their states did not give the match. Now, there's never been a problem with states giving a full 100% match to 1862s. And so I think it's something that we need to address. And I want to say today that my colleague, Mr. Davis from Illinois, has been working with me on how we can get states into a posture by which they could give the 100% match. So bipartisan efforts are going on to make sure that we can help with that, as well as the fact that we know that since 1890s do not have very large endowments, there are resources that are needed in these institutions that are not needed in 1862s. Let me just ask a question to whoever would choose to answer it. I didn't hear much about the hurdles that are faced by 1890s as it relates to funding, and what happens when you don't get the funding. Anyone who chooses to answer it, please feel free. Don't be shy. Okay, come on, Dr. Bell.
Thank you for that very important question. One of the challenges that our institutions face that has to do with funding is the lack of adequate personnel to help carry out some of the extra duties that are required when we serve the population of students that we serve. As you indicated, many students do come to our universities needing remedial help or other kind of attention, and that takes people to work with them directly, as well as to guide them in the appropriate way to learn those study skills and other skills that perhaps they did not pick up while they were in high school. So one of the challenges is to have adequate personnel so that we can then use our faculty to engage in the research and teaching efforts that are necessary to help move the mission of the 1890s forward. Many of our faculty who are outstanding researchers have inadequate time to be able to do the high-quality work that's going to help drive the 1890 agenda and the land-grant agenda forward because of the excessive teaching loads that they carry. Most faculty are teaching 12 credit hours per semester at our institutions, which is an enormous load. So those are just some of the challenges that we face as a result of inadequate funding.
Thank you, Dr. Bell. And Dr. Martin, you talk about in your testimony the burden of documentation when waivers are required. And I know my colleagues really don't like very much, they hate paperwork, right? We hear this all the time, so I'm hopeful that we can address that issue for you. Lastly, let me just say, again, thank you. And on behalf of my colleague, our assistant leader, Mr. Jim Clyburn, who really wanted to address you today and was not able to do so, I want you to know how interested he is in what you had to say today. And on his behalf, I thank you as well for being here. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. The other Mr. Scott from Georgia, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And before I get into the questions, I want to just give a thank you to an old friend of mine, Lenmore James, who I served with for 14 years in the state legislature. I know my colleague David Scott knows Lenmore He was a graduate of Tuskegee, and he was a tireless advocate for Fort Valley State, and certainly worked very hard on behalf of veterinary programs and other things for Fort Valley State. And so, hadn't seen him in a while, but Dr. Bailey, when I saw you today, it just reminded me of that friendship, and actually have just sent him a text to make sure he knew I was going to be talking about his work on behalf of your institutions while we had you here today. I was at Fort Valley State in October of last year and had an interesting conversation with some of the veterinarians there. You've got a tremendous research facility for ruminants. We would call those sheep and goats in South Georgia. I hope I pronounced the other word correctly. But had very interesting conversation with the veterinarian there, and I know one of your faculty members actually went to Afghanistan and translated some of the veterinary books into their languages so that they could understand how to better take care of their sheep and goats in that part of the world. And I think that that goodwill has tremendous impact for America and our relationships in other parts of the world, and helping them do that. But if you would just speak to you've got a program that's called Stronger Economies Together that Fort Valley State has been involved with. Would you be willing to share that with us and your leadership there and what Fort Valley State is doing with that?
Yes, thank you for that question, Congressman. This particular program, Stronger Economies Together, Fort Valley State University has taken the lead. And what they do is they focus on those counties that are most economically depressed, what we call the strike force counties. Mm-hmm. And the main thing that they do is bring rural leaders together so that they can cooperate, collaborate, and make decisions that will advance the economies. Mm-hmm. And so we've been quite successful in that because we've been able to get teams out to the eastern part of the state as well as the southwest part of the state, pulling the leaders together in order to make progress for the economies of those areas.
Yeah, I represent over 20 counties in that area, and I want to thank you for your work there. And it's pretty, when we lose one manufacturing facility, I think the impact in our area is much greater than certainly if they lose an individual manufacturing facility in a metropolitan area. And so certainly bringing manufacturing back is one of those things that we want to continue to work on. But the agricultural sector is what has been the bright spot for the rural parts of the country lately. And I want to thank you for being there for that and the research. And I want to thank you for your relationship with 4-H. I know we had a lot of 4-H students here today. That's a wonderful organization that does a tremendous amount of good for our country and our youth. Any other suggestions that you would have for us, Dr. Bailey, before we go? I'm down to 1 minute with regard to extension. I know Ms. Fudge brought up funding. If any suggestions on the funding related issues?
Yes, we've done a lot of training, food education training, especially through the 4-H and as well as FFA. So we're reaching young people. We need additional funding so that we can bring their families into the discussion, because we know that it is a long-term investment in eating right and better health behavior, but also it is one that really permeates the entire culture. So additional funding will allow us to reach more counties, more students, more families, as we move towards making a healthier and more economically prosperous state.
Well, thank you, and thank you for being here, and I look forward to being at Fort Valley State again, and hopefully my friend Lenmore James can join us there for lunch one day. Thank you. I yield the remainder of my time.
Jim yields back. Gillette, North Carolina, Ms. Adams, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for your testimony today. We appreciate having you. I have a very serious interest in HBCUs. did my bachelor's and master's at North Carolina A&T, and I spent 40 years on the campus of Bennett College. So clearly, it's in my blood. I did want to touch on something that Dr. Martin and some of the others talked about, and that's the funding. But since Ms. Fudge mentioned it, I'm not going to go pursue it so much, but just to say that there is a required match to states, and the states just aren't doing it. And 10 southern states in particular withheld about $57 million, as she said. And so there's no penalty. And, you know, we might need to look at that. Not that I want to be punitive, but when we try to find ways for states to help with that funding, I think we need to look at that a little more seriously. So I won't dwell on that, but it's been a lot of money that our schools have lost, and I think in terms of the research and the other kinds of things that they could be doing, we do need this money. And it's about fairness, because the other schools are getting it. And we want to make sure that everything is fair. And Mr. Scott, I want to thank you for the information that you've provided. I think it's a very good suggestion. But Dr. Martin, let me just ask you, because you mentioned the food insecurity and food access, and we know that there's serious problems in Greensboro and the Triad. I'm pleased that my alma mater, A&T, is using its 492-acre farm as a community education resource and all that you're doing. And I commend you for that. But you mentioned barriers to young and minority farmers. And I guess my question, first of all, is what challenges do you see for A&T for new farmers in North Carolina?
Thank you very much, Congresswoman Adams. One of the areas, a variety of areas we find critical to small farmers in general, certainly minority farmers in particular, include making a living, a reasonable living from the soil of the land these farmers own. And what we have sought to do is provide both significant understanding of business opportunities for our small minority farmers and helping them find the best use of their land and crops to grow on their property, and then connecting them with outlets to market their produce so that they're able to derive sufficient return on their investment in their farms as well. We have endless examples of where we have work with a small farmer who once produced one set of crops, say tobacco, for example, and help them understand the importance of transitioning to other opportunities for their land. For example, using the land to create a set of crops related to vegetables that are critically important in connecting the produce derived from that farm to some of the grocery store chains and outlets and farmers markets so that they may then get a greater return on the produce of their farms, or transitioning them from growing tobacco to creating fisheries, for example, to derive profit from growing prawns or producing catfish, for example, or creating mushroom farms. We have a world-class mushroom expert on our campus who has developed a technology that has then transferred to some of the small farmers in our region to help them learn to produce mushrooms, very important, very high-quality mushrooms, producing these mushrooms and then selling these mushrooms to grocery store outlets and chains as well. And these farmers are now doing better, are more prosperous, quite honestly, and that's critically important for us, obviously, then makes a difference in the economy of those regions of our state as well.
Thank you very much. Before I run out of time, I wanted to ask, I'm sure you're aware that the reauthorization of the Higher Education Act is before the Congress. And can you share with us any priorities that you think we may not have on our radar screen that may be unique to North Carolina A&T?
Thank you again for that excellent question. We believe that obviously reauthorization of the Higher Education Act is critically important to higher education in general, certainly important to the 1890s and HBCUs in particular. There are core areas, first and foremost, related to financial aid. The Pell Grant and ensuring that there is consideration given to expanding Pell Grant, the level of Pell Grant awards. We lost the opportunity to make Pell Grant awards during the summer months, which we think are critically important for our students, the students we serve. And so if we could see opportunities to reintroduce that opportunity. Title III funding. Title III funding is part of the Reauthorization Act, critically important to HBCUs in particular. So restoring fully and expanding Title III funding, continued funding for the graduate education component of Title III that runs out this year. We're looking for another 5-year restoration of that funding, continuation of that funding we think will be critically important for us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'll yield back.
Gentlelady's time has expired. Gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Thompson, 5 minutes.
Chairman, thank you so much. Each of the panelists, thank to each of you for your leadership at marshaling our land-grant universities, our pathways to opportunity, but also, our land-grant universities are just great problem solvers. Some would say traditionally for rural America, I would say it's for all America, given the types of problems that our land-grant universities work on. So thank you so much. My question is, open this up to whoever would like to respond. Do you believe that separate funding lines for the 1890 and 1862 land-grant institutions are still a necessity, or is there a more efficient way to appropriate federal agricultural research and extension funding?
Thank you for that question, Congressman. The idea of the separate funding, I think, is still appropriate. We have two groups of universities, but they have two very different missions. And I think that the separate funding right now should continue.
Very good. Any other thoughts?
I would like to add George Wright from Prairie View A&M University. There are instances in our state where Texas A&M and Prairie View are located in the same county and in the same office. So you will have Texas A&M and Prairie View, yet the agents from both of those two institutions will say that they seem to be touching different constituencies. And so consequently, even though Prairie View does everything it can to open its doors to everyone, at the same time, we do see a special need there to work with that community. I might also add that in many instances, the situation for Hispanics, many of them newcomers to this country, mirror the same situations for African Americans. And so if you look at some of the parts of Texas that do not have emergency care, do not have hospitals, or absent some of the youth programs and so forth, then it's Prairie View agents who are doing it. I think it's fascinating that not only do we think about our program as doing the rural kind of things, but we're very involved in abuse of women, of bullying, of diet issues and things like that. So there are some issues that we do see, yet at the same time, we do understand the need to work collaboratively.
Congressman, I'd like to also echo Dr. Bailey's remarks. Being situated in, obviously, Tuskegee, Alabama, I do recommend that these funding lines remain separate. We are situated in one of the poorest counties in one of the poorest states, and obviously it's disproportionately African American. And so not only would these separate lines not only remain separate, but even be increased because of the unique issues Tuskegee, for instance, are confronted with not only the rural farming problem, but situated with the lack of capacity even within the city to assist not only our students, but even for us to be much more vital community partners with our local county and city.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Mangum.
Thank you. I'd also like to respond to that question. I do believe that we should have separate lines of funding for a couple of reasons. One, mainly because the capacity building funds is extremely important to our institutions. You probably know, as many do, that our endowment funds don't nearly match up to the endowment funds available at many of the 1862s, which provide them with additional resources to be able to address the agriculture and other issues associated with the agricultural industry. So the capacity building funds have continued, and we certainly hope that they are expanded, would allow us the opportunity to become more competitive as we build out our institutions and build out our agricultural programs. Thank you.
Well, once again, thank you to all the panel. Chairman, I yield back.
Jimmy yields back. The gentlelady from Florida, Ms. Graham, for 5 minutes.
Thank you so much. I want to thank everyone who's here today, and I also believe we have a pretty large overflow room as well. So thank you to those in the overflow room for being here. I'd like to just say to Dr. Mangum again, what an honor and a pleasure it has been to get to know you and to work with you. And as Rattler-in-Chief, you are making all of us very proud. So thank you very much. My question, you mentioned the USDA land transfer, and one of the issues that I'm very interested in as well is helping our veterans with employment opportunities as they come home. And farming is a natural opportunity, particularly in North Florida. What components of the USDA transfer are you thinking about potentially benefiting those veterans as they transition back from active duty into veteran status?
Thank you, Congresswoman, for that question. With the land transfer of the 3,800 acres, we need to partner with many people to establish the small farms and the ranches in that region. And the Veterans Association in our area has been pursuing us, in fact, when the opportunity became available. The idea of establishing small farms and allowing opportunities for our veterans to establish farms as a way to transition back into society is a great opportunity for us, and we're looking really forward to being able to do that. So we have several partners that we're looking to partner with to establish those farms in that area and those ranches.
Well, thank you, and I just wanted to make sure that we had that on the record, because I'm so proud of all that FAMU is doing, in addition to now working with our veterans in that capacity. So thank you again, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentlelady yields back the balance of her time. The gentleman from Florida, Mr. Yoho, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate everybody being here on the panel and all the other presidents being present today. I'm a graduate from the University of Florida, land-grant university, and I appreciate Dr. Mangum being here with your rivalry of FAMU. And it's always good to see another great Florida school present here in Washington. What do you see as the biggest challenge getting students involved in the agricultural sector in your school? What have you come across?
Thank you for the opportunity to answer that question as well. I think one of the biggest obstacles is making agriculture attractive to young people. We need additional resources to enhance our offerings, enhance the experiences of our students to be able to become involved in it, to show them and have them experience the value of agriculture and show them the value of it in the future. Food safety, food security, and being able to have food that is healthy is a very important part of us being able to tell the story. Having the laboratories, the greenhouses, and the facilities that would attract them to the agriculture industry, I think, is a challenge for all of us in a high-tech world where technology is taking over. But agribusiness is also extremely important, and for us to be able to turn them on to those types of opportunities, we need to invest more in their world and exposing them to agriculture.
And it's just such a critical thing that we all do, because as George Washington said, a nation, you have to have food security to have national security. And when I first came up here and I shared this story with somebody, they're arguing the Farm Bill, and one of the congressmen from obviously a non-farming state, or not a very big one, said, "What do we need a Farm Bill for? Why don't we import our food?" I think we tried that with oil, and I don't want to try that with our food. And so it's so important to get people involved in that, and it's fun. And, you know, on the campaign trail, one of my competitors said, you know, people don't want their kids working in the fields anymore. And I'm like, heck, I've been doing that since I was 15 years of age. It's okay. And it's just something we need to promote more and more. Dr. Johnson, with your veterinary program, in fact, I had a classmate of mine, his wife went to Tuskegee, and she graduated in '82, I believe it was, Cindy Silas. Are you doing anything to get people to go into large animal medicine? Because as my colleague, Mr. Peterson, brought up, there is a shortage, and it is hard work. It's great work, though. Living there, working on the farms, working with people that make a living on our farms, feeding America and the world. Do you have any special emphasis that you're bringing people in there, knowing that the USDA has a loan forgiveness program for people that do rural animal medicine?
Sure. Thank you for that question. And in fact, I wanted to follow up with the ranking member, Peterson, that our graduates are approximately 30% within the large animal field in terms of what areas they go into, and then approximately 70% small animal. With respect to trying to develop that pipeline, is always a difficult challenge. I know that we have two deans, Dean Walter Hill and Dean Ruby Perry, at both of the vet school as well as the agricultural. One of the things that they're thinking about is developing unique, innovative ideas and partnerships about how to get veterinarian students as well as agriculture students working together. Obviously, your cattle, your animals benefit from the nutrients of the soil that they derive from and the food that they're eating. And so one of the things that I know that they're working in cooperation with is applying for more USDA funding to support that sort of work so that they can create additional pipelines. But we'll certainly follow up and give you even more information if you need.
That's great. I appreciate it. And, my affinity is I'm a veterinarian, so the more people, large animal too, the more people you can put into that, the better off we'll all be. And I want to get, if you guys can, weigh in on this. One of the things we see is the benefit of the GMOs, genetically engineered, genetically modified, transgenic, whatever you want to call it. We see the benefit, less fertilizer, more yield, more nutrition. As you guys, I assume you're all doing research in that. What we need to help us in this committee is to get that word out, the benefits of GMOs, and to have spokesmen like you in your colleges representing, say, it's okay, it's gone through research, it's gone through the development, and they're feeding the world, and they're using less pesticides. And if you guys can weigh in that, and of course I'm out of town, but if you'll help us do that, it would be greatly appreciative. And I thank you for your time and your efforts and all you do. I yield back.
Jim Mills back. The gentlelady from Virgin Islands, Ms. Plaskett, for 5 minutes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning still to all of the presidents. I want to thank you all for the tremendous work that you do in educating our young people and bringing young people to be leaders here in this country. Mr. Chairman, if you'd allow my indulgence, I wanted to do a little housekeeping myself. Dr. Lawrence Alexander, I want to thank you for taking care of my son. I have a son, Ariel Duffy, who is a student at your university. He's the great-nephew for O.C. Duffy. He's doing very well, and you all are treating him very good, but I'm watching. He's not the youngest child in my family, but he is the baby. So he's in Vespers Choir and really enjoying his time at University of Arkansas Pine Bluff, where his grandfather graduated and is an agricultural scientist before retiring. So thank you all for the work that you've done in that area. And I wanted to just thank you all for what I think is the commitment that you all have to the communities as well that you're in. I have a second, my oldest son was at the University of the Virgin Islands, which is also a land-grant university, and did some work with not just the farmers, but fishermen in our areas, and assisting them in statistical analysis that was needed for their yields from their fishing. And this is the kind of work that you all engage in, is really being a part of the communities in the land-grant, fulfilling that mission and being a part of rural development in many of the areas that you're in. So I was going to ask you, whomever would like to answer the question regarding the farmers and rural residents. What is the assistance in the work that you see yourselves really performing the most, and the activities that you're, not just the students, but the professors in your extensions have the most need for among the rural farmers in the areas in which you are working?
I'd like to start.
Yes, Dr. Bell.
Thank you for that that question. On the eastern shore of Maryland, one of the major concerns that our rural farmers have is on their use of fertilizer and the impact on the Chesapeake Bay. And so helping those farmers to identify ways to modify their use of primarily poultry litter, and to cut down on the phosphorus runoffs that occur as a result of that so that they can meet the policy requirements is a critical research area for us. We've been able to come up with some new technology that allows the poultry fertilizer to be used in a different way that does not produce the same level of runoff and odor that typically violates the policies. And so it's an educational program for our small farmers. We have a poultry association that meets regularly on our campus to help bring them the latest technology, as well as to help them to manage their farms and to be more competitive for USDA funding.
Thank you. Do you see the area of the students entering into agribusiness to really provide assistance in this area, or how are the students really using the degree of agribusiness that you find, those that are engaged in it? Is it being utilized here in the United States, or I know so many instances where students are using it more in developing nations and other areas?
Thank you very much for the question. Quite honestly, the demand for our undergraduates by the agribusinesses we partner with are overwhelming. The demand is very high, and many of our undergraduates have just incredible high-paying jobs, and many of them are going on into the marketplace, quite honestly. What we try to do as part of our educational engagement with our students is to get them involved in undergraduate research so that we're enabling and encouraging many of them to get involved in, through their research, to going on to graduate school and getting involved in work related to our extension activity so that they may then see an opportunity to pursue graduate education, get involved in higher education career opportunities, and then work in our research and connect what we do in our research laboratories and innovation we discover there, and transitioning that research to the benefits and betterment of the farmers we work with as well. The scope of needs of our small farmers are quite varied across areas, including limiting use of pesticides, developing crops where there is limited need for irrigation, and enhancing the use of a different set of more resilient seed in producing more abundant crops, and capturing those crops and connecting our small farmers to outlets where they may then sell their produce. So a varied set of expectations. They have limited hands on their farms to now farm the farm, if you will, and produce crops. So we're developing strategies to help them develop more efficient ways to grow produce and deliver that produce in a more abundant way to the marketplace.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you all so much for your work. And I yield back.
Gentlelady's time has expired. Gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and boy, it's a great privilege to be here, and I want to thank each and every one of you for what you're doing in education. My mom and dad were involved in education, and thank goodness they were involved in education, although there were many challenges there. Before that, we farmed, and of course, back in those days, what motivated me to get an education is because we were dirt poor, and but things worked out. And of course, I went to school at Auburn University over there in Alabama, and a great land grant university, and then of course my folks graduated from the University of Georgia, another great agricultural school. So. Yeah, I guess my question would be this. There are lots of opportunities in the agribusiness world, and we've heard about those over and over and over again. And students, we talk about funding, and we talk about, we need money for this, or we need money for that. And I guess my question is, outside of funding, what can we do to help motivate young people, or what is the biggest challenge we have with young people today, motivating them to take a look at this industry and the opportunities available to them? And I'd be glad to offer that question to whoever would like to tackle it on the panel.
Okay, I would like to give it a shot. It seems to me that so many of our young people, and I don't know where it comes from, have grown up with a stereotypical view of what agriculture equates into farm life means. One of the things our dean, who is here with me, tries to do is, someone made this comment earlier, I think it was Congressman Scott, in saying that it's about food, it's about clothing, it's about water, it's about security, it's about all of those things. It's also about working in forestry and so forth. So we try to show them the wide range of opportunities available. At Prairie View, roughly around May the 1st, the first Saturday in May, we have what is called Goat Day, and that is a day that brings everyone in our community to the university. We're very happy that a lot of white and Hispanic young people come, because we want them to see Prairie View and consider coming there. We wish we could get more African Americans to come. We show them all the things you can do with a goat. Anything you can do with a cow, you can do with a goat, and probably more. But it's very important to do that. So for us, it's just educating them about the opportunities that are available. We even talk to them about job possibilities here in Washington, working in USDA, working as attorneys, working in all sorts of things. And as one of my colleagues was just mentioning, we definitely try to show them how graduate education is possible, and all the different kinds of opportunities throughout this country are available. So it really
How can
is.
we help you get that message out?
Yeah.
How can this body help you?
Yeah, I think a lot of it falls on us ourselves. That Prairie View, like many of these, we try to say the A in our, the A is there for a very important reason. Then the A has been there from the beginning, that it is agriculture, and agriculture is more than someone tilling the soil.
Yeah, I'm on the education workforce as well, and I was in one of our schools, and I asked the kids, what is the largest industry in our district? And a little fellow raised his hand, he said, Walmart. So, Mr. Chairman, we got to get the word out that agriculture, of course, agriculture is our largest industry. Any others like to address that need?
Yes. I would like to just add that you asked, what can we do to help? And I'd like just to add that agriculture is not Google, and it is not one of these high-tech, very attractive areas that young people want to be in. But it has to really start, the education has to start at the young ages. And so making sure that the message even goes down through K through 12. So that they realize that this is so important. It's a matter of survival, but that their familiarity grows early and strong.
And promote it, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll have to yield. My time is out. Thank you again so much for being here, and keep up the good work. We want to help any way we can. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired. Ms. Custis, for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to all of you. Take you to a different part of the country. I'm from New Hampshire in the northeastern part of the state, but we have a wonderful land-grant university, the University of New Hampshire, and doing great things with agriculture. 2 points. One is that I just want to say, for those who don't think that government programs work, 125 years is a pretty good record, and imagine the number of people that have been educated, and certainly the security and the variety of our food industry is pretty extraordinary. I want to take a somewhat different look at young people. I'm very proud of the fact that New Hampshire has a 5% growth rate in small farms. And by the way, all farms are small farms in New Hampshire by any of my colleagues' reckoning. And one of the reasons is that we have a resurgence in organic farming, farm-to-table, farmers markets. We have a resurgence in our consumers wanting to know where their food is coming from and what is in it. And with all due respect to my colleague, Mr. Yoho, we might have a different perspective on the research that he's asked you to, and the advocacy that he's asked you to take on. What I see in my district, and certainly the polling bears this out, but the reality of our lives bears this out, people want to understand what's in their food. And the fastest growing restaurants in the country right now are Panera, Chipotle. People want to actually watch their food being prepared. They want to see what's going into it. So I wanted to ask you, this is what's inspiring young people. And then they're getting, the rest of us are catching up to CSAs and how to, go back to cooking great food and real foodies. This is what's driving an economy for us in New Hampshire. I'd like to ask you, are you seeing this? Do you see people interested in organics or natural foods or being closer to their food? And how are any of you, and this is just wide open, how are any of you responding to that?
Congresswoman, thank you very much for that excellent question. We in North Carolina are seeing significant growth in farmers markets.
Yeah.
The attendance at our farmers markets are overflowing because of the interest of individuals in wanting fresh vegetables and fresh produce and wanting to know what's in their food. We also are working very closely with our partner institution, 1862 institution, North Carolina State, and research and centers of research in food production, and partnering with all of our food outlets in North Carolina and our restaurants to gain commitments from them to bring to the table in their restaurants all over our state a certain percentage of their food grown in North Carolina. So we're seeing an accelerated interest and an excitement about first partnerships and collaboration, but also food to table through our work with our food producers, small farmers, larger farmers and producers, and the outlets, our restaurants and grocery chains and the like in North Carolina. Lots more excitement and enthusiasm about growth and quality of food and safety of food.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. Any others?
I'd like to add that at the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, one of the initiatives that we are working on is what we call high tunnel greenhouse farming. And so we have a number of those high tunnel greenhouses that have been instituted around the region, working with farmers who are then contracting directly with area outlets such as Whole Foods and others. And we've also introduced that into some of the school systems to help with the school-aged children, help them to become accustomed to growing food and seeing how it naturally develops. So it's a very interesting project.
Yeah, and getting consumers and children closer to their food again. I've heard stories where children didn't know what food looked like. They didn't know the name of it. They hadn't seen fresh food. So absolutely. I think, Dr. Bailey, I've got 10 seconds. So.
Yes, I just wanted to add that at Fort Valley State University, we have devoted 18 acres to local farmers so that they can go out, grow their own fruits and vegetables, and we have a farmers market associated with that. It's very successful.
Terrific. I think that's a great way to attract young farmers and attract young people to it. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sure. Gentleman's time expired. The gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Davis, 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. And I will not use all my time because I actually have to be on the House floor chairing proceedings at noon. But I do want to say I had a chance to watch much of your responses to the questions while I was conducting some other meetings during this hearing. And it's just amazing to me some of the progress that you're making at your universities and the focus. I do want to add to what my colleague from Georgia, Mr. Allen, said about focusing on agriculture. I come from Illinois. Obviously, no one here is from the state of Illinois and representing an institution there, but Illinois is kind of a hub of where our land-grant universities came from and where they are today. And as a matter of fact, a former professor at Illinois College in Jacksonville, Illinois, an institution I went to for 1 year, and no, they didn't kick me out, Mr. Chairman. I left on my own volition. But Illinois College, Mr. Turner, is credited by historians with helping Mr. Morrill come up with the idea for land-grant universities. So what you do is tremendous for us, and we're glad to partner with you in the great state of Illinois, especially on behalf of my land-grant university that I'm proud to represent, the University of Illinois. I want to make sure that you have all the opportunities you need to talk about some of the advances. What I care about most is being privileged to be the subcommittee chairman for the Subcommittee on Biotechnology, Horticulture, and Research, is these issues of ag research are priorities of mine at all of our land-grant institutions. I'm going to throw this out, and if I get up in the middle of your response, I apologize. Because I do have to go, but I'm going to yield back the balance of my time and allow you a chance to be able to maybe think about some of the issues that you would want our subcommittee to address. And if you could, follow up with me later. Send a letter, send some correspondence, come see me, let me come see your institutions, because what you do is an integral part of what we're able to do to make your institutions more successful in the future. And I'd have to thank my colleague who's not here, but she was instrumental in many of the issues that your institutions are facing, and we're working very closely together on some other issues regarding with our fellow appropriators, and that's my good friend Marcia Fudge from Ohio, who I know had some very kind words for each of you earlier today, and thank you again for being here. Thank you for what you do, for making agriculture such a priority, and thank you for educating so many students and turning them into great American professionals and giving them an opportunity to career. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Louisiana, Mr. Abraham, for 5 minutes. I'm sorry, misspoke. The gentleman from Oklahoma, Mr. Lucas, former chairman of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I think this is a very important hearing we're having. I always like to remind my colleagues what our presidents out there know, which is that the wonders of the land-grant system. Prior to the original 1862 Act being passed, unless you were the child of a rich person in this country, or for that matter anywhere in the world, an advanced education was not available to you. And with the 1890 Act and the 1994 Act, we've made that available to everyone in this great nation. And that's really kind of a fundamentally amazing thing that we began in this great country, so we should all be very proud of all the land grants. I have the privilege of representing Langston University in 1890 in Oklahoma, and I believe, Mr. Chairman, you said it would be all right to address some questions to the presidents who are not at the table.
Absolutely.
Dr. Wright did a very good job of discussing the GOAT program, but if I could call upon Dr. Smith perhaps to touch on that just a little bit more. We're very proud in Oklahoma of that particular research program at Langston, and if you could expand for a little bit on that, Doctor, and perhaps Dr. Wright also, if you'd care to, talk about this building relationships in foreign countries and the trust that comes from that in a time when perhaps Americans are not always the most trusted individuals around the planet.
Sure. Thank you very much, Congressman, and we're very proud to have you as our representative. We're proud of the partnerships we have domestically, but we're equally proud of the partnerships that we've established at Langston University, in particular with our gold research area. We're in Haiti, we're in Israel, we're in Africa, and these are partnerships that are literally transforming lives internationally. As mentioned by my colleague, we tend to think of the goat very differently in the United States of America. But when you go abroad, the goat is one of the most used animals out there. And when you talk about the impact, both from a dairy standpoint, but also from a meat standpoint, from clothing and what have you, is nothing short of phenomenal what can happen in an underserved community when they're introduced to the possibilities that goat research and having goats available to them could provide. So we are heavily involved internationally at Langston University through our goat research program, and we're doing many of the things that my colleagues have mentioned domestically as well.
The opportunities there for your students, both graduate and faculty, to participate in those international trips. Could you expand on that for a little bit? Because I suspect a typical land-grant university in this day is still much like Frank Lucas was several decades ago, had not spent a whole lot of time outside of his state, certainly not outside of the country, but it's got to be a mind-expanding experience for the students.
I'll give you a personal example that just happened to me. It was July 4th, and the reason I know that is I was outside with my young children, and we were popping fireworks on the campus, and literally 6 students walked up, well, thought were 6 students, and turns out they were students from Africa, exchange students from Africa, who had just gotten onto our campus the day before, and they were there as a result of our faculty members' research and involvement in Africa, and they're here for the summer. And we started having a dialogue, and for my personal children, they got to interface with some people who were different from them, who were from another part of the world, and many conversations. Fast forward to the interactions that our students are having this summer with students from Africa. That's what being prolific in the area of research and going global can have on your campus. Our faculty is getting to interact in ways that they would not have had otherwise. So it's a tremendous opportunity that's provided. When you give, you get back tenfold in terms of the research. So it's allowing us as a land-grant institution to talk about the university globally, but to interface with what's happening in education throughout the world.
Thank you, Dr. Smith, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yield back the balance of my time.
Jim yields back now. Mr. Abraham from Louisiana for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Being a rural physician in the Louisiana Delta, I cannot tell you how important agriculture and land-based universities have been to our state and our southeastern United States. We're very fortunate today. We have representation from Southern University. Dr. Belton, if you'll just stand up for a minute, sir, I would love to recognize you. He's the newly appointed president and chancellor of the Southern University system. And again, for me, it's an honor for him to be here representing Southern. Southern is a shining star, not only in our state of Louisiana, but in the southeastern United States and really throughout the nation. It is directly and indirectly benefited farmers, ranchers, agribusiness, and every resident of the state, I can assure you, has been touched through the graduates and the work that Southern does. In fact, I've got an intern working with me this summer, Perez Pickney. He is a student of Southern University. So thousands of our students in Louisiana and across the nations have graduated with degrees from Southern, successfully employed, gone out and become just fantastic businessmen and businesswomen, leaders of our community, leaders of the nation's community. And additionally, Southern has been recognized and accredited from the Urban Forestry and Natural Resources Department that offers a BS, MS, and PhD in urban forestry and natural resources. And to date, more than 300 students have received degrees from just this department, and they are heavily recruited by the USDA. So again, just can't say enough about Southern being an integral part of our university system in the state of Louisiana, but also in the state of the nation. And I'm proud to have Dr. Belton and his representatives here to do that. And I'll get to my question. And I think Dr. Bailey, you alluded to this, but agriculture now is not what it was when I was growing up as far as getting a degree in agriculture. It is so much more. I couldn't begin to expound on the possibilities and the probabilities that are affordable in agriculture now. I guess my question is, Of all the fields in agriculture that are new and upcoming, where do you guys see the most growth, and are there jobs available for these graduates when they get out? And anybody that wants to hit first, go right ahead.
Well, thank you for that question. I personally have a background in business, and that might make me favor agricultural economics. I think it is the basic area, the foundation. I know that there are career opportunities for our students in that area as well. It's an asset to the decision-making, and I think that it will help all of the decision-makers, the leaders, to hit the correct balance with regard to investment in food or fabric or shelter. So I think that its importance simply cannot be minimized. And I would say that probably is where we need to go.
I agree totally. Anybody else like, yes, ma'am. Go ahead, Dr. Mangum.
Thank you. I'd also like to expand on that question. I think scientists are needed in agriculture. Much of what we do, developing the biological controls, if we are going to protect the food supply and production, we need more students
I think it's
in the research area.
I totally agree. I think it's a national security issue, our food safety now. So I think you're spot on exactly with that. It has become that important. Anybody else?
I was going
Yes,
to
sir,
just
Doctor.
add that food safety and security is a prime area on our campus, in particular given the industries that we serve in the region. And so we think that that is an area of growth for not just our region, but for the whole nation and the world, actually.
Well,
I was going to
go ahead,
mention,
Dr. Wright.
water management is very important. It just so happens that in Texas, we've had a lot of rain this year, but if you look over the last 5 or 6 years, we're more or less had droughts. And the fact that on our campus, we have people very interested in that whole area, I think is so important. So it's, again, a research area, but water management is so important.
Yeah, look at California, what's
Yes,
happening
that's
out there
correct.
now. So, well, again, just appreciate y'all's great work. Mr. Chairman, I'll yield back.
Jim Yell's back. Before we adjourn, I turn to my colleague and friend David Scott for any comments he might have to close out the hearing.
Oh, well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. First again, thank you very much for your leadership in providing this hearing. We're very, very appreciative for that and with what we have to do. I was just sitting here and for this whole morning, and I want everyone to know that this has been a hearing of soaring magnitude and historical significance. And we've accomplished a lot. We have strengthened the bond and the relationship of the 1890s with the Congress of the United States. And I think you genuinely see the interest and the concern that members of Congress have expressed, their knowledge, the work they did in getting their own research. You could tell by the in-depth questions that they asked. The other extraordinary part about this hearing that made it of such soaring magnitude is that you all came so well prepared to talk about what you have done and are doing with the federal funds that you are receiving. And furthermore, the talk that you have brought to explain the great efficiencies for how you're getting so much out of the amount of money and funds that we are giving. And thirdly, the fine recommendations of what you and what we can do to do, as I echo the words of George Washington Carver, what we can to better the condition of the American people. Now, one of the most prevailing things that have come out of this meeting is the urgency and the total understanding that we're facing here an issue of grave national security. That's why this is so important. And the role of the 1890s going forward will play a very critical role in addressing this national security area. One, the age of our farmers, those who produce our food, is continually escalating up, as I said, to 60 years of age. The 1890s can play a critical role in that. The whole concern about beginning farmers, you know, just for an acre of land now, it costs $8,000. So we in Congress must understand that we've got to look at this as a national security area and get the resources out into your hands so that you can do the job of opening up these opportunities and dealing with this final issue of showing the proper image of agriculture to the African American community. This was the final point that was made, and the gentleman from Prairie View A&M addressed it so succinctly when you said the stereotypical image of agriculture must be erased so we can show all of the greatness of agriculture, the significance of agriculture, the extraordinary jobs and opportunities that are all too often being bypassed by the African American community because of this stereotypical. As I said, it's the food we eat, the clothes we wear, it's the energy, it's everything. And so I say to you, ladies and gentlemen, God bless you. This has been extraordinary. We say onward and forward. Again, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I thank the gentleman for his One of the worst things to do is to follow a Baptist preacher. But David, thank you for those comments. I too want to add my thanks and congratulations to the system for 125 years plus. Some of the schools have been around a little bit longer than that, but at least from the 1890 version and supports given from that legislation. Congratulations on that. Probably won't have to wait for another 125 years to have you back to talk to Congress. This has been a really terrific hearing. You saw from the interest with the crowd outside when you all got here, we transitioned from the reception, the keen interest in that. Universities are at their core tools to prepare kids for the future. I had a chance to meet with 4 young folks that are back there this morning to talk to them about what their plans are, where they're going, and the fact that they need to be really good because my generation and the one just below me and the one ahead of me have screwed this place up. And they're going to have to be really good to save us from ourselves, in effect, for all the problems that are out there that's going on. I marvel at the impact that teachers and administrators have on mentoring and teaching and training and loving and prepping young men and women for those tasks that will, in fact, make this country a better place and all of our lives better. And then the ripple effect, because they will then teach and train and mentor and love and hug and do all those kind of things. So thank you for being a part of that and being here. You have a great story to tell. It folds really nicely into the overall agricultural story. As we look at future the 2018 Farm Bill, we've got to create that awareness among folks who live in urban America and don't really have the direct link other than eating 3 or 4 times a day, to agriculture and the impact that has on their lives. And so how do we make them aware? Because they already benefit from the cheapest, most abundant, and safest food and fiber supply of any developed nation in the world, based on the efforts of you in training those young farmers and all that they do. They just don't know it yet. And several of you mentioned the fact that this idea they don't know where food comes from other than the grocery store. They have no idea how it shows up there. And as we gentrify our country, more and more, and that's what's happening, and we lose that direct contact back to the land, then we run the risks of not appreciating just what agriculture does for us every single day. I may have told one of you, I was in a conversation with one of our colleagues when I first got here, and I was talking about being on the Ag Committee, and she said, well, I represent an urban area, and I don't have any agriculture issues in my district. And so I asked her, I said, well, does no one in your district eat? And she looked at me, she said, well, yeah. And I said, well, seems to me they've got a keen interest in a successful production agriculture industry in this country. So I hope you've had a great time in Washington, D.C. I hope this has been beneficial for you to come and be a part of this. It's clearly been beneficial to us, and we really appreciate all of your efforts to make that happen. As I mentioned earlier, the other schools, if you wanted to prepare an opening statement, much like you'd have been able to present under the rules of the committee, the record of today's hearing will remain open for 10 calendar days to receive additional material and supplemental written responses from the witness to any question posed by a member. Again, thanks everyone for being here today. This meeting of the House Committee on Agriculture is adjourned.